Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we are strapping ourselves into the cab of a company that's, well, generating a lot of buzz right now, especially in the small cap world. We're talking about Kodiak AI.
That's right, the autonomous trucking technology developer just hit the public markets.
Exactly. And the big question we're tackling, the one you've been asking about, is pretty straightforward, but high stakes. Is Kodiak AI a good time to buy now?
Yeah, and it's fascinating because the sources show this real tension, this kind of conflict. You've got some incredible operational stuff happening.
Right, real momentum.
Butting heads against this, well, almost complete lack of solid financial data since the merger. A real vacuum.
It really sets up a tricky analysis. Now, before we dive in, if you find this kind of rapid breakdown helpful, please do hit that subscribe button, give us a like, maybe drop a comment.
And definitely, if there's another company, another stock you want us to dig into the sources on, let us know in the comments. We're always looking for the next investigation.
Okay, so let's unpack Kodiak. This is, a pretty classic story in some ways. Disruptive tech hitting the public scene.
Very classic and very, very recent. Kodiak only started trading publicly, what was it, September 24th, 2025? Just days ago, really.
Yeah, super fresh. And that was right after they completed their business combination with Ares Acquisition Corporation, too. That was the SPAC, right?
Correct. The Special Purpose Acquisition Company. Basically the blank check company that took them public, letting them skip the traditional IPO route.
So faster route to market, but maybe less upfront scrutiny than a typical IPO.
Potentially, yeah. So Kodiak AI, fundamentally, they develop autonomous vehicle tech specifically for trucking, big rigs.
Aiming right at that massive long-haul freight industry. Huge potential, but also huge challenges.
Absolutely huge. And they're not entering an empty field. They're going public-facing some really well-capitalized competitors. You know the name.
Oh, yeah. Aurora Innovation, Too Simple, Waymo Via. These are the heavy hitters. They've been at it for a while. Lots of funding.
Exactly. It's arguably one of the most competitive and expensive corners of the future transport market. Serious players.
So that brings up the obvious question, doesn't it? How does a brand new public company, even one coming out of a SPAC with cash, plan to compete? How do they stand out against those giants? What's their, secret sauce?
Well, according to the materials we looked at, their main angle, their differentiation point, is this idea they call modular autonomy.
Modular autonomy. Okay, sounds techy. What does that actually mean in practice for, say, a fleet owner?
So the pitch is centered around their system, the Kodiak driver. They claim it's designed for really fast retrofits onto existing commercial trucks.
Ah, retrofits, so not necessarily buying brand new, specially designed autonomous trucks.
That seems to be the core idea. If you break down modular here, it suggests scale and cost efficiency. Fleets could, in theory, integrate Kodiak's standardized kit, the sensors, the hardware, the software, into various truck brands they already own, even older models.
Okay, I can see the appeal there. Lower upfront cost for the fleet operator, right? They don't have to ditch their entire existing fleet immediately.
Precisely. It could dramatically speed up adoption if it works reliably and integrates smoothly across different platforms. That's a potentially big commercial advantage. Minimize the customer's capital expenditure.
Makes total sense from a sales perspective. Easier sell B2B. But this focus on the commercial side, the tech pitch, it leads us right back to that big problem we mentioned.
The financial data vacuum. Yeah. This is the single biggest hurdle for doing any kind of proper fundamental valuation right now.
Because normally we look at the latest 10K, the annual report, to see revenue, profits, debt, all that core stuff.
Right. But as of, basically today, September 28th, 2025, the consolidated 10K for the new combined Kodiak AI entity post-merger. It just hasn't been filed yet.
So it's like trying to figure out if a new building is sound just by looking at the blueprints and maybe some photos of the foundation being poured.
That's a good analogy. We know the plan, we see some initial structure, but we have no certified data on the actual operating results. No revenue figures for the combined company that we can trust.
No confirmed profit margins, obviously. And zero forward guidance from management about what they expect for, say, 2026.
Nothing official. The only financials readily available are from those pre-merger documents, the S4 filings, the prospectus stuff.
Which basically just show the legacy staff financials, right? Zero operating revenue, net losses.
Yeah, completely typical for a SPAC before it merges. Totally expected, but also totally useless for valuing Kodiak AI as an operating tech company now.
So the cash they do have currently on the balance sheet, the money they're using for R&D for these shipments we'll talk about, where did that actually come from?
Mostly from two places. The cash held in the SAP Trust account, and then what's called PI-PE financing.
PIPE, private investment in public equity. So, big investors putting money in right around the time of the merger.
Exactly. It's capital raised specifically to fund the company post-merger. It's investment capital, operating capital. It's not revenue earned from selling their trucking services yet. We don't know how much they're burning through that cash either.
And this lack of hard post-merger financial data is exactly why Wall Street analysts are completely silent, isn't it?
Completely. Zero analyst coverage. No upgrades, no downgrades, no price targets, nothing. They're all sitting on the sidelines waiting for that first official public report.
Which really forces our hand, methodologically speaking. We have to shift focus away from the missing financials and look at the qualitative evidence, the operations.
And this is where the story gets genuinely interesting, I think. Because despite that financial black hole, the operational evidence suggests they are definitely not just sitting still. They are actively moving freight.
Yeah, the momentum seems pretty undeniable just looking at the last few months, July through September. They've completed over 7,300 revenue-generating shipments.
Let's just pause on that number. 7,300. That's not trivial. That implies thousands and thousands of miles driven autonomously, generating actual revenue, presumably without major issues that would scare off big customers.
And these aren't just, small test runs around a parking lot. These are real commercial deliveries from massive global players. You mentioned Maersk, IKEA, J.B. Hunt.
Right. When a company like IKEA, known for its complex logistics, trusts its freight to your autonomous system, that's a pretty powerful, tangible endorsement. It says something about perceived reliability.
And it's not just one-off shipments either, is it? Look at the Atlas Energy Solutions partnership.
That's another key piece. Atlas apparently increased its fleet of trucks using the Kodiak driver system to 8. 8 trucks.
And the really critical detail there is that they're running 247 commercial deliveries with those trucks.
Exactly. That 24/7 operation signals a huge leap in confidence. It suggests Atlas sees the system as reliable enough, safe enough, to integrate it deeply into their core operations, basically replacing human drivers around the clock.
Which is the ultimate goal of autonomous trucking, right? Continuous operation, maximizing asset utilization.
That's the dream. Plus, remember that collaboration with Roush Industries back in August?
Yeah, Roush delivered the first Kodiak driver-enabled truck to a customer fleet.
Right. That's significant because it marks a shift. It suggests they're moving from just R&D prototypes towards being ready for actual scalable production and delivery to customers, becoming a real hardware and software provider, not just a research project.
Okay, so that operational picture is certainly impressive, a strong foundation being built. But now let's pivot to the technicals, the stock chart. And we run into the same problem we have with the financials, don't we? Immaturity.
Exactly the same problem. The trading data is just incredibly young. Trading only kicked off September 25th. That gives us, 3, maybe 4 days of data to look at?
Barely anything. And in those first few days, what did we see? The price bounced between $6.50 and $7.80.
Yeah, something like that. A wide range in just a few days. That screams major volatility, likely driven by initial hype, retail interest, maybe some SPAC dynamics still shaking out.
High volatility, probably pretty low trading volume overall. It means the price action isn't really stable or reliable yet, does it?
Not at all. You can't draw any meaningful conclusions from that yet. There are no established technical trends. Forget about looking at moving averages, RSI, MPD. None of those signals are meaningful with so little history.
So from a purely technical standpoint, trying to trade this short term based on the chart.
It's pure speculation right now, gambling, really. The chart just doesn't offer any reliable signals yet. Too immature.
Okay. But while we're on the topic of speculation, let's talk about insider signals. Because this adds another really interesting layer, especially for a company with no official guidance yet.
It really does. What's fascinating is that all the insider activity reported so far since the merger has been awards. Grants of stock, options, not sales.
So management isn't dumping their shares right after going public. They're getting more skin in the game.
It seems that way. They're aligning their interests with shareholders, getting incentives tied to the company's future success, rather than immediately cashing out post-SPAC, which you sometimes see.
And the specifics of those incentives are pretty eye-opening, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially for the CEO, Donald Burnett.
Oh, yeah. He and other executives received substantial grants of RSUs, restricted stock units, and options. But here's the kicker, the part that really stands out.
The price hurdles.
Exactly. Many of the CEO's RSU awards are specifically tied to the stock hitting some very ambitious price targets. We're talking 18s, $23, and even $28 per share.
Wow. Okay, for a stock that just started trading between $6.50 and $7.80, Setting targets that high, $18, $23, 28 cents, that's either massive confidence or, well, something else.
Right. You have to ask, are these just aspirational goals kind of anchoring expectations, or do they genuinely believe they can hit milestones that would justify those kinds of valuations?
My thinking leans towards the latter. Those specific price targets probably aren't arbitrary. They likely correspond to hitting major operational milestones.
Like what, for instance?
Well, think about what it would take to justify $18. Maybe that means they've doubled the Atlas fleet, signed up a couple more major Fortune 500 clients, and crucially, maybe gotten regulatory approval for fully driverless runs in a key state like Texas. Big achievements.
And $28, that would imply even more significant market penetration, maybe expanding service offerings. So the incentives become a kind of proxy for a high-growth, high-risk roadmap.
Exactly. Which brings us to the next logical question. What could possibly happen in the near term to fuel that kind of optimism? What are the upcoming catalysts we need to watch?
Okay, yeah, let's look at the calendar for the next few months,
Yeah.
because these upcoming dates are really where the rubber meets the road for Kodiak stock.
First up pretty soon is October 15th.
Right. October 15th is the Nasdaq 100 ETF quarterly rebalancing. It's probably a long shot for a brand new SPAC successor, but if they somehow got included, it could force passive funds to buy the stock, creating a liquidity boost. Unlikely, but possible.
Okay, maybe a minor potential catalyst. But the really big one everyone's waiting for is later in October, isn't it?
Absolutely. October 29th, 2025. That's the date for their Q3 earnings conference call. This is huge.
Their first public report as a combined company.
Exactly. This is where we should get the first real insight into how commercialization is actually going, customer traction details, maybe some financial metrics like cash burn, and critically forward guidance for 2026.
That guidance is key. Without it, we're still largely flying blind.
Totally. And then looking a bit further out, towards the end of the year, December 2nd.
What happens then?
That's the deadline for the Form 13F institutional filings. This is when the big money, the hedge funds, the mutual funds, have to disclose their holdings as of the end of Q3.
So we'll get to see if any major institutions started building a position right after the merger.
Precisely. It could confirm if serious institutional buying is happening, which would add some stability and validation. Or it could show they're staying away for now. Important signal either way.
Okay, so those are the hard dates. But we also can't ignore the rumor mill, right? Especially with a stock like this, market chatter can definitely move the price short term.
Oh, for sure. And there are definitely rumors swirling, even if they're just speculation at this point.
Like what? What's the scuttlebutt?
Well, there's persistent talk about a potential strategic alliance. Maybe Kodiak partners up with a major traditional freight operator that could help them scale up routes nationwide much faster than they could alone.
Makes sense. What else?
Also chatter about international expansion, maybe starting a pilot program in Europe before year end. And even rumors of an AI hardware partnership, perhaps with a big chip maker, to try and bring down the cost of their sensor systems.
Any one of those, if confirmed, would obviously be a significant positive catalyst.
Absolutely. And this is we have to constantly balance this potential upside against the very real risks. The S4 filing itself laid out some major ones.
Yeah, risks inherent not just to Kodiak, but really to this entire autonomous vehicle sector.
Top of the list is just the fundamental uncertainty and the sheer cost of actually commercializing this technology at scale. It's incredibly expensive R&D.
And it's not just about perfecting the tech, is it? They need regulatory buy-in. State by state, potentially country by country, that's a huge variable.
Hugely unpredictable. And then there are the immediate financial risks. Kodiak themselves basically state they expect ongoing operating losses for the foreseeable future.
Because they just don't have meaningful revenue yet from the core business to cover those massive R&D and operational costs.
Right. The cash they got from the SPAC and PIPE won't last forever. Eventually, they'll likely need to raise more money, which could mean more dilution for existing shareholders.
And speaking of dilution, that's another risk factor tied to the SPAC structure itself, isn't it? Warrants, earnouts?
Exactly. When those warrants get exercised or earnout shares are issued, it increases the total number of shares outstanding, potentially lowering the value per share for everyone else.
Plus, you've just got the broad sector risks. This is a high volatility space. It's sensitive to the overall economy, especially the capital-intensive transport sector. And regulations can change on a dime, potentially delaying or even shutting down operations.
Lots of hurdles, lots of ways things could go wrong.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. We've got the exciting operational wins, this big financial question mark, the insider confidence signaled by those high price targets, and a bunch of risks. What's the bottom line? What's the investment thesis here?
Well, given that huge financial data vacuum, the lack of a post-merger 10K, no pro forma results we can verify, the conclusion has to be that this is highly speculative right now.
So the overall rating reflects that uncertainty.
It has to. We ended up categorizing the stock with an overall rating of 3 out of 10.
Oh, 3 out of 10. That's pretty cautious. Let me push back on that a little, though. If they've already successfully run 7,300 commercial shipments for huge companies like Maersk and IKEA, and they're running 24/7 operations with Atlas, hasn't the market, in a way, already validated the core technology? Isn't that operational proof worth more than a 3, especially for potentially disruptive tech?
It certainly validates the potential of the technology. It proves the concept works in controlled, specific deployments. But it doesn't yet validate the business model at scale or its financial viability. Meaning, those 7,300 shipments, while impressive, were likely still heavily subsidized by that SPAC and PIPE money. We don't know the actual gross margins on those runs. We don't know their true customer acquisition cost or their current cash burn rate. Until we get that Q3 report, we can't assess the path to profitability. The operational wins reduce the technology risk, perhaps, but not the financial risk. Not yet.
Okay, that clarifies the rationale behind the 310. So the final recommendation based on that.
Based on that, Kodiak AI is categorized as very speculative for long-term investment. It's really only suitable for investors with a very high tolerance for risk, who specifically want exposure to the autonomous vehicle sector and are prepared to wait potentially years for commercialization to fully mature and hopefully pay off.
And for shorter-term traders.
Definitely not recommended for short-term trading. The volatility is too high, the liquidity might be thin, and there's just not enough reliable data, financial or technical, to make informed short-term bets. The prudent move is to wait for that Q3 earnings call on October 29th. That will be the first real data point to anchor any decision.
That makes sense. Wait for the data. Okay, let me leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on as we wrap up. Considering everything we've discussed, the deep uncertainty, yes, but also those significant operational achievements like the 7,300 shipments and the 247 routes, and the fact that insiders have tied their own fortunes to share prices hitting 18, 23 trade days, even 28 D terms, how much weight do you give that tangible current operational proof versus the current undeniable financial opacity when you're thinking about taking a speculative shot on a disruptive technology like this? Something to consider while we all wait for those crucial Q3 numbers in a few weeks.